Alright, what is going on, guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Now today what I've got for you guys is another Arrow video. Now this video is going to definitely contain spoilers from episode 15 of season 5 of Arrow, so if you guys are not caught up with the show, I definitely suggest clicking off this video now if you don't want a giant plot point of this season spoiled for you. So if you have not seen episode 15 of season 5 of Arrow, I definitely suggest clicking off now, but if you have, let's continue. Now, what I want to do with this video is just give you guys my thoughts on the reveal of Prometheus' identity in the most recent episode, as well as give you guys some of my thoughts and theories on who I think Vigilante could be. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the video. So, as you guys would obviously know if you saw episode 15, you would know that they revealed Prometheus' identity, and they did this in such a really casual way. I really wasn't expecting it this early on in the episode. It was really sort of like the halfway point. I was expecting if there was actually going to be a reveal of a character's identity, I would have thought that it would have been Vigilante that episode, but it was really crazy to see that we actually got Prometheus' identity revealed to us halfway through the episode, and usually they reveal identities sort of towards the end of an episode, or maybe in the sort of post-credits type of scene of the episode, but I was definitely really surprised, and at first I didn't really like seeing that Prometheus actually was, drumroll please, Adrian Chase.
Yes. I'd like to report a sighting of Vigilante. This is District Attorney Chase.
Now, don't get me wrong, now after I've taken a few days to sort of let it sink in, now I'm actually really excited to see where they take this storyline going forward in Arrow this season. I'm actually really excited to see what they do with Adrian Chase going forward, and going with Prometheus going forward, but really the only reason why I didn't like the reveal sort of right when it happened when I was first watching the episode was just because I had always hoped that he was going to be Tommy, like I said in my theory video, and yeah, it kind of shocked me that he wasn't. I mean, I kind of always knew that it was going to be Adrian Chase. He was just sort of always the #1 candidate for people. He was always sort of the guy that was just sort of, he stood out as being kind of sketchy the entire time, but everybody thought he was going to be Vigilante like he was in the comics, and even the actor himself in certain interviews and stuff, he like hinted towards himself actually being Vigilante, but it's pretty crazy to see the showrunners take such a turn from the actual comic book canon and change it for the Arrow TV show, but it was actually definitely pretty cool because it definitely made the reveal a lot more impactful, knowing that that he was actually somebody different than a lot of people had thought he was going to be. Now, backtracking a little bit to Tommy, I would definitely still like to see him come back on the show at some point. I saw some people talking about that they would like to sort of see him come back as sort of a type of Red Hood type character, and I thought that that would actually be really cool. So if Tommy sort of, he came back sort of the same way that I was talking about in my Prometheus video, sort of he comes back with the Lazarus Pit, that Malcolm, he put him in the Lazarus Pit between seasons 1 and 2, and then maybe he eventually will come back as sort of a Red Hood-esque character, but we'll just have to wait and see if he actually ends up returning to the show at some point. But let's actually transition into talking a little bit more about quote-unquote Adrian Chase. And now the reason I say that is because I don't think Adrian Chase is Prometheus' real name, and the reason I think that is because of the trailer, the trailer for the episode, the next episode of Arrow. It kind of gave a little bit away as to a little bit of Prometheus' backstory, and it came in the form of a little quote from Talia al Ghul that I'll play right now, and then we'll talk about it in a second.
Tell me who this Prometheus is.
He calls himself Adrian Chase.
She said he calls himself Adrian Chase. Now, this is just a very cool line here because it sort of gives away a little bit, like I said, of his backstory, and it tells you sort of in a way that Adrian Chase is not Prometheus' real name. And now the reason I think this is because I think he actually stole the real Adrian Chase's name and is almost stealing his identity in a way, and I think that there's still a possibility that Vigilante actually ends up being the real Adrian Chase, but the Adrian Chase that we've been seeing throughout season 5 of Arrow is actually just the Prometheus version of him that has been stealing his identity, and the real identity to the Adrian Chase that we've been seeing the entire season is they're most likely going to go back to the Justin Claiborne's son type of route, is that he really is Justin Claiborne's son, but in order to throw off Oliver and Team Arrow, he's been using the name Adrian Chase as a cover-up, and that's sort of maybe a reason why Vigilante doesn't like Prometheus as much. Is number one is because Vigilante still wants to kill Oliver as the Green Arrow, and Prometheus doesn't want that to happen. But I just sort of think that this would be a cool little rivalry between Vigilante and Prometheus, like we saw in that little fight scene in the most recent episode. But yeah, I just think that it definitely kind of makes a little bit more sense now if you look at it that way, is that Adrian Chase is not Prometheus's real name. It's just sort of a cover-up name that he's taking to sort of throw off Oliver and Team Arrow. Now, like I said, I'm definitely really excited to see where they take this Prometheus story arc further on into Arrow Season 5. Prometheus has definitely been a really good villain this year. I really like sort of the horror movie villain vibe that I'm getting from him. He's sort of like they've sort of modeled his theme music and everything after like some classic horror movies and things like that. So it's definitely really cool to see that on Arrow, and I definitely, like I said, can't wait to see where this plays out further on down the line in the season. But now let's transition over to my thoughts on who Vigilante could really be. Now, my number one theory on this is, like I said, I think that he could be the real Adrian Chase, and that they could actually still go with what they're doing in what they have done in the comics and have Vigilante end up being Adrian Chase, but he is actually the real Adrian Chase, not the Adrian Chase that we have seen throughout Arrow Season 5 so far. And I think that this could definitely be a possibility. He would obviously have to be a completely different actor than we're seeing as Prometheus at the moment, but I just definitely think that this would be pretty cool to see him revealed as the real Adrian Chase. And while I'm on the subject of Vigilante's reveal, I saw this article a couple of days ago. I will link it down in the description. But there was a article saying that that Vigilante's identity might not be revealed this season, and we might actually end up having to wait until season 6. So I'm honestly not sure if there's a possibility that maybe the Arrow writers at the moment aren't completely sure who they're gonna make Vigilante be, but they probably know. I mean, they knew that Adrian Chase was Prometheus since like June or something like that. So yeah, I definitely think that it would be pretty cool to see if Vigilante was the real Adrian Chase that had his identity stolen by Prometheus. So now let's move on to another theory that I have that's definitely a lot less plausible, but it's kind of crazy and it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but like I said, it's definitely really crazy and really out there. And now, like I said, this theory is definitely really crazy, so please don't hate me for thinking this, but I feel like there's a possibility that Vigilante could actually be Curtis's former husband, Paul. Now, I know that you guys are thinking, wow, this is really, really dumb, but I have a little bit of evidence for this. So, when Diggle, Wild Dog, and Mr. Terrific or Curtis were going to find Vigilante during Oliver's press conference, there were a lot of people at the press conference that obviously could not be Vigilantes. There are so many people that we can rule out as being Vigilante, and there were only a few people that we've seen before on the show that are still alive and that could actually end up being Vigilante, and one of those people is Paul. And now, obviously, he was only in that episode right at the end when he had that dinner with Curtis and everything like that. Not going to really talk about that, but I think that there's a possibility that he could be Vigilante because throughout the season, Mr. Terrific or Curtis as Mr. Terrific has really not had much luck with taking down bad guys, and he has not really been that skilled so far, but with his T-Spheres, he was actually able to sort of defeat Vigilante, not really defeat him, but sort of cause him to retreat and everything. So I really feel like there's really not a lot of explanation on how Curtis could have done this, other than that it was Paul under the mask and he was trying not to hurt him. Now, if you remember back to that fight scene with Vigilante actually ended up shooting Wild Dog and Diggle. He shot Wild Dog, I think, in the leg, and then he shot Diggle, like, point blank in the chest. And then he made a little remark about how he's glad that Cisco put in the extra Kevlar in his suit, which I thought was really funny. But, yeah, Vigilante shot both of them, and he didn't really even shoot at Curtis he shot at him a little bit, but it didn't look like he was actually trying to hit him. If you know what I mean, he was sort of shooting in his direction, but almost purposefully missing, and he had so many opportunities to actually shoot Curtis and sort of either incapacitate him or even kill him if he really wanted to. So I just really feel like there's some connection between Curtis and Curtis and Vigilante. So there was really no reason why Vigilante wouldn't try to shoot Curtis like he did with Wild Dog and Diggle. Now, the only thing to sort of disprove this theory was in the first episode that Vigilante was in, he actually sort of used Mr. Terrific or Curtis as kind of a hostage. He roughed him up a bit, but he didn't end up killing him. But I think this was definitely before Paul figured out that Curtis was Mr. Terrific, and then sort of once he figured out that he was Mr. Terrific, he sort of reacted kind of crazily, and he like you guys know from the show, is he left and everything like that. And I think that while he said that he left because he didn't want Curtis to get hurt, I think he left because he is Vigilante, and that if he stayed close to him, that he couldn't actually go do his vigilantiness or whatever. So he sort of did that to almost hide his true identity from Curtis. And the reason why Vigilante, obviously, like I said, was not trying to hurt Curtis or kill him like he was trying to with the other members of Team Arrow, was because he knows him. Now, Paul being Vigilante is absolutely crazy. I think this most likely will not happen, but it's just kind of crazy, the little evidence that I can find towards this theory to actually make it slightly plausible. But like I said, I definitely think Vigilante will end up either being the real Adrian Chase, or possibly a character that we haven't seen yet on the show and that we will get introduced to either later on this season or early on in season 6. But let me know what you guys think about the Adrian Chase is Prometheus reveal. Let me know what you guys I want to know what you guys think about it. What are your thoughts going forward on Arrow this season? Who do you think Vigilante is? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I will see you guys in the next video.